Hello. This video reviews Act 2 of Macbeth. When we start out, we know Macbeth has had a dinner party for King Duncan. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have decided to assassinate the king. In scene 1, Banquo and his son, who are there for the party, are out very late. It may be 1:30 in the morning. And then Macbeth comes in. Who's there? And Macbeth says, a friend. What, sir, not yet at rest? The king's abed. He has been an unusual pleasure, and sent forth great largesse to your offices. This diamond he greets your wife withal. And so we find out right here that these people are going to be receiving many, many good things from King Duncan. But that's not enough, we know, from them. You notice that Banquo tells him, all's well. I dreamt last night of the three weird sisters. To you they've shown some truth. And Macbeth lies and he says, I don't think about them. But of course that's all he's been thinking about. He's been thinking about how he can fulfill the witch's prophecies that he will get to be a king. But then Macbeth says to his best friend Banquo, I think not of them yet. When we can entreat an hour to serve, we would spend some words upon that business if you would grant the time. In other words, although I haven't been thinking about that, I'd like to talk to you about it a little bit more if you have time. And Banquo says, sure, I'll talk to you about it. And Macbeth says, if you shall cleave to my consent when it is, it'll make honor for you. But look at that strange line that Banquo has. So I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep my bosom franchised and allegiance clear, I shall be counseled. Now, that's a strange thing to say. Macbeth has just said, I'd like to talk to you about something, buddy. And Banquo says, well, as long as I don't lose my honor, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. Now, that's his best friend talking. And so if anybody knows what Macbeth is capable of, it's probably Banquo. And at that moment, Macbeth knows, okay, I cannot talk to him. He's loyal to Duncan. So Duncan and Duncan's little boy Fleance, they go on to bed, and Macbeth is left alone. And then we have a very, very famous soliloquy by Macbeth. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not in it, I see thee still. Directors do this a couple of different ways. Traditionally, there has been a dagger on stage, on a rope, floating, and Macbeth sees this dagger, and he talks to the dagger. And the dagger turns around and starts pointing toward Duncan's bedroom. It's got blood dripping from it. And Macbeth says, yep, that's what I was going to use, all right. Many modern directors have no dagger. They all have this happening in Macbeth's mind, that he's so stressed, he's seeing things now. But in Shakespeare's day, there would have been a dagger. Most traditional productions have a dagger showing, and if we have witches flying through the air, we certainly can have a dagger. But Macbeth goes to kill the king. So now we find out the plan has altered a little bit. Early on, Lady Macbeth talks about my knife, making the wound in Duncan. But now we find out she is going to go upstairs. She has drugged the guards, taken a drink to them with sleeping powder in it, I suppose. They will pass out. She will lay their daggers ready. Macbeth now goes upstairs. He's going to take the daggers from the guards, kill the king, and leave the bloody daggers by the guards. They didn't know about fingerprints back then. They didn't have DNA analysis. So circumstantial evidence was all they had. And here will be these drunk guards with bloody knives by them. And it looks as if they got drunk in the night, went in there, killed the king, or maybe somebody hired them to do it. And then they can be arrested and executed. So that's the plan. But plans don't always go exactly the way we think they're going to go. But anyway, Macbeth goes. I go when it is done. The bell invites me. So Lady Macbeth was supposed to ring a bell when she had drugged the guards. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. Scene 2, Lady Macbeth has done her part. And she says, that which has made them drunk has made me bold. So she's still excited about doing this. and Macbeth comes downstairs, and he is a wreck. Now, Lady Macbeth was upstairs with the daggers and with the sleeping Duncan and with the drug guards. She could have done it herself. But notice what she says. Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I would have done it. Only shred of humanity we really hear from Lady Macbeth. She says, Duncan looked like my father sleeping, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But Macbeth did, and he is hearing voices. He's just falling apart. He's got blood on his hands. He says, oh, what a sorry sight. And she says, oh, that's silly to say something like that. Macbeth says, I heard voices. Sleep no more. Macbeth murders sleep. She says, you didn't hear any voices. But he is really, 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 really upset. Who was it thus cried? Why, worthy Thane, you done bend your nobles. Go get some water. Wash that witness from your hands. So he's got blood. She says, go clean up. And then she notices he did something wrong. He brought the daggers downstairs. He's supposed to leave them back upstairs with the guards. She says, take those daggers back. He says, I'm afraid to look on what I've done. I'm not going to do it. In firm of purpose, give me the daggers. So she has to be the bold one, the brave one, and she takes the daggers back upstairs. Macbeth hears knocking. Somebody's knocking at the castle gates. He says, oh, I wish you could wake up Duncan with the knocking. So already he regrets what he has done. And she comes back downstairs, and she says, see, I'm not going crazy just because I have a little blood on my hands. Macbeth says, I wish all of Neptune's ocean could wash this blood clean from my hand. No, if I put my hands in the ocean, it would turn the ocean red. And then scene 3, we have really a comic relief scene. Some directors play it more seriously than others, but an old drunken gatekeeper has been out drinking with his buddies, and he's thinking that he's the gatekeeper of the gates of hell, letting in all these condemned souls. But then he starts sobering up enough to realize, oh, there's really somebody at the gate. And so he answers the gate. It is Macduff and Lennox. They've come to wake up the king and take the king back home. And they talk to the old man for a while. He gives some kind of tacky messages back and forth to them. And then Macbeth comes downstairs. Is the king stirring, worthy Thane? Not yet. Well, he commanded us to call timely on it. So Macduff goes upstairs to wake up the king, which of course is not going to happen because the king is dead by this point. And Lennox and Macbeth are left downstairs to talk. And we find out strange things have been going on. The chimneys were blown down, so they had a big windstorm. Screams of death were heard last night. The owl hooted all night long, and there was an earthquake. And Macbeth says, yep, it was a rough night. Later on, we learn that King Duncan's horses in their stables even turn cannibalistic and start trying to eat each other. So all of nature is confounded in Shakespeare when a monarch has been killed. You remember in Julius Caesar, when Caesar's killed, lions came in the streets to give birth. There was a meteor shower. I think there's an earthquake. All kinds of weird things happened there. So we have a repeat of that right here. So Macduff has found the murdered king. Horror, horror, horror. Tongue nor heart cannot conceive nor name thee. And Macbeth has to pretend he doesn't know what's going on. What's the matter? Confusion has made his masterpiece. Most sacrilegious murder has broken open the Lord's anointed temple and stolen the life of the building. In other words, somebody stole the soul out of Duncan's body. Our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And so somebody stole the soul from the body. And now Macbeth and Lennox run upstairs to see. Macduff has said, approach the chamber and destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. Remember, Medusa was one of the Gorgon sisters. Medusa had snakes in her hair. And if you looked at her, you turned to stone. So Macduff is saying, if you see our dead king, you would turn to stone. So Macbeth goes upstairs. Now, some directors show this in film versions. Shakespeare did not write it this way. But later on, the guards are dead. We don't know when that happened. So if Macbeth goes ahead and kills the guards, it's at this point. Maybe they're waking up. Maybe he's afraid that they'll talk about Lady Macbeth being up there, and maybe he panics and maybe he kills the guards right there. Because when he comes downstairs and talks to the nobleman, he says, oh, I regret now that I killed the guards. But we don't see that in the play at all. But if it happened, this has to be when it happens. Lady Macbeth comes downstairs, pretends she doesn't know what's going on. And then Macbeth confesses to everybody that he went ahead and killed the guards. She pretends to faint, or she actually does faint, depending on how the director wants to show it. And Macduff is furious. Why did you kill the guards? Because, these are the only people they had to interrogate. And conveniently, Macbeth has now wiped them out. And so Macbeth says, well, which of you wouldn't have? Don't you love Duncan as much as I do? They are beautiful, Duncan, silver skin laced with our golden blood, and they're the guards. And I knew they did it, so I killed them. And you would have too, wouldn't you? Well, of course, they're afraid to say no. Make them look like traitors if they said no. The boys come downstairs, Malcolm and his brother Donalbain. What's going on? Your father has been murdered. And Malcolm says, who did it? Well, it seems those of his chamber, they were all bloody. And the boys realize something's not right here. And their father has taught them, if I get killed, get out of here. And so they decide to leave. Donalbain says, what should be spoken here, where our fate hid in an auger hole may rush and seize us? Let's away. And then Banquo says, look to Lady Macbeth, she's fainted, but we have our night clothes on right now. Let's get dressed and meet so we may question this most bloody piece of work to know it further. We don't know everything yet. But the boys decide they're going to leave in secret. Malcolm is going to go down south to England, trying to get good Edward the Confessor, King of England, to help him out. Donalbain's going to go to Ireland. They're going to separate so they can both be safer that way. If one gets captured, at least there'll be another son of Duncan to take over. We don't see Donalbain for the rest of the play. Scene 4 is a conversation scene. We find out Ross is talking to an old man, and all kinds of weird things are going on. We also find out it is dark, even though it's supposed to be daylight. Now, that's a crucifixion image. At Christ's crucifixion, it was daylight, but it stayed dark all day. So again, it's relating Duncan to a Christ image and Macbeth to a Judas image. And then Macduff comes in and says, well, the rumor is that the guards had something to do with it, but there's another rumor now that the king's sons had something to do with it because they've run away. Well, the crowning place is known as Scone. And so Macbeth is going to go to Scone to be crowned. But they didn't even have a funeral for King Duncan, which shows that maybe Duncan was really not all that popular. They just shipped his body back to his family Baltic Holmkill, the other side of Scotland. And so Ross says, are you going to go to the coronation party? And Macduff says, nope, I'm going home to Fife. Fife is Macduff's home county. He's not going to the coronation. That's kind of an insult. Every nobleman's supposed to go to the coronation ceremony and the party afterwards, and Macduff says, I'm not going. And if we look at a map of Scotland, Macduff's county is right next to Macbeth's. Maybe these two were friends once upon a time and had a falling out. We don't know. But it is rather insulting that he's not going, and Macbeth will notice that too. Ross says, well, I guess I'll go. And Macduff says, well, I hope you see things well done there, lest our old robes sit easier than our new. And if you remember from Act 1, the theme of borrowed robes is a theme. And Macduff says, well, I hope things are well done there, lest Duncan was a better king than this new guy will be. And the old man says, well, God bless everybody. So that is Act 2.